Hey everyone, uh, Virgo. Hey, Anna here from Virgo. I need you to let this one in. Not just hear it, let it in. Take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Subscribe if something in you just shifted. Let's build something. You have been living in a temporary structure. Not necessarily literally, though, possibly literally too, but in the deeper sense of a person who has been arranging their life around a set of conditions they knew on some level were not the final conditions. Who has been making it work in the available space, with the available resources, with the available version of stability, which is a real version, functional, held together by the specific ingenuity of someone who has learned to build shelter out of whatever materials were at hand, but who has known in the private, honest part of themselves that the ingenuity cannot fool. That what they have been inhabiting is a temporary structure, adequate for the season it was built for, not built for permanence, not built for the version of their life that is actually coming. The permanent structure is being built now. Not metaphorically, though, metaphorically too, in the specific material sense of the conditions of your life rearranging themselves towards something more solid, more lasting, more genuinely yours in the way that things built for staying are yours rather than things built for getting through. The foundation is different, not the improvised foundation of a temporary structure which does what it needs to do for the immediate situation and is not designed to bear the weight of everything that will eventually need to rest on it. A real foundation poured for the specific weight of what is coming, cured to the specific depth required by the soil beneath it, built by someone you who has been learning through everything that preceded this exactly what kind of foundation this life actually requires. Money first. Because it is real and because treating it as less real than the emotional dimensions of this reading would be its own kind of dishonesty. The financial shift approaching your life is not incremental. It is not the natural next step in a gradual upward progression that started small and will arrive eventually at something significant. It is a step change. The difference between those two things is structural incremental changes move along the same track in the same direction, producing more of what was already being produced at a rate that the existing framework can absorb and process without requiring the framework to change. A step change breaks the track, requires a new framework, arrives at a volume that the existing framework was not designed for, and that forces the design to change. Not the track, but the system the track runs through. Not the amount, but the category. You are changing financial categories. What that means practically is that the decisions available to you in 6 months, in a year, in the natural development of what is now beginning to accelerate those decisions will not be the decisions currently available to you, will not be the decisions you have been making inside the existing framework of what was possible. They will be a different set, generated by a different level of resource, requiring a different quality of thinking about what is possible from here and what to do with the possible The decisions of a person who is no longer building within constraint, but building from choice, which is a completely different kind of building with completely different results, produced by the specific freedom of someone whose primary architectural variable is no longer what they can afford, but what they actually want. What do you actually want? Not constrained by what has been available, not shaped by the specific limiting logic of someone managing a temporary structure and making the best of what is there. Freed from that logic, what is the building you actually want to be constructing? What does the permanent structure look like? How many rooms? What kind of light? What is visible from the windows? Who is in it with you? These are no longer hypothetical questions. They are the practical questions of someone standing at the beginning of a period during which the answers will be relevant to actual decisions. So answer them. Not out loud in the interior space where you keep the things you want before the world has confirmed they are available. Take them out. Look at them directly. Stop treating them as the dreams of a person who has not yet arrived at the circumstances that permit them. You are arriving. The circumstances are shifting. The answers to those questions are going to matter. The home. Whether this arrives as a literal new home, new address, new walls, new geometry of daily life organized around a different physical space, or as the broader thing the word names when it is not being used literally, the sense of being in your right place, settled, not in the resigned sense of someone who stopped looking for better, but in the genuine sense of someone who found it, who walked through a door, the right door, the one that had been there all along on the route they were traveling, and recognized it from the inside. Felt the specific quality that right places have, which is not drama and not the sudden revelation of a cinematic moment, but something quieter, a reduction in the background noise, a lowering of the low-level vigilance that wrong places require without announcing that they require it, the particular ease of a body that has stopped bracing. You have been bracing for a long time and in ways you may not have fully registered, because bracing that continues long enough stops feeling like bracing and starts feeling like posture, like just how you hold yourself, like the normal physical experience of moving through your own life. But it is not normal. It is the accumulated tension of someone living in conditions that require more effort to inhabit than they should, more monitoring, more adjustment, more maintenance of a situation that does not hold its shape on its own without the ongoing investment of your attention and your energy and your willingness to keep making it work. What would it feel like to stop, not stop trying, stop bracing, stop the low level, always on, invisible background effort of maintaining conditions that do not sustain themselves? What would your body feel like in a situation that held its shape without your continuous intervention? What would your attention feel like when it is no longer required to monitor and adjust? What would you think about? What would you build? What would you create with the resources currently being consumed by the maintenance? That question has an answer. The answer is the version of you that the new home, literal or figurative, both makes possible. The version freed from the bracing. The version with the full resource of itself available for actual living rather than for the management of inadequate conditions. Stability, the least glamorous word in the title and the most important one. The one that people who have not lived without it tend to undervalue, and people who have lived without it understand with a clarity that no amount of theoretical understanding can replicate, as the foundation without which everything else is provisional, temporary, contingent on conditions remaining as they are, which conditions never guarantee. Stability is not comfort, it is the specific structural condition that allows a person to build things that last. To invest in relationships knowing the investment will not be undone by an external disruption. To make long-term choices, to plan, to dream without the dream immediately being qualified by the awareness of how quickly the ground could shift. You have been dreaming with that qualification. Everything you have wanted, everything you have reached for, everything you have tried to build has been built with one part of your attention on the wanting and one part on the ground beneath the wanting, checking whether it is holding, whether the conditions will persist long enough for the building to justify the investment, whether this is the season to plant or the season to wait for conditions that are not guaranteed to arrive. The qualification is not weakness. It is the accurate, experience-based response to having lived in conditions where the ground has shifted before, where things built in good faith have been disrupted by external factors outside your control, where the investment was made and then the conditions changed and the investment was lost, not because it was wrong, but because the stability required to protect it was not present. The stability is arriving, not as a gift, not as luck in the arbitrary sense of something that falls on whoever happens to be standing in the right place at the right time. As the natural consequence of a specific combination of things, the readiness you have developed, the foundations you have been laying without seeing the full plan, the specific maturation of conditions that were not yet mature when you needed them most and are now in this season aligned in a way that produces what the previous seasons could not. The stability is the product of the work, not immediately, not proportionally, not in the one-to-one exchange that effort and result rarely actually have, but cumulatively over the distance. The way foundations are the product of work done before the structure above them makes the work visible. You don't even realize how happy you'll be. This line. This is the line in the title that is doing the most unusual work. Not because it promises something, the happiness is not a promise. It is an observation about a gap, about the distance between what you are currently able to imagine for yourself and what is actually approaching, about the specific characteristic way that people who have been living in inadequate conditions develop an imagination for their own future happiness that is calibrated to those conditions, that underestimates, sometimes drastically, what the change in conditions will actually produce in terms of the quality of daily experience. The imagination for happiness is shaped by the available evidence. The available evidence has been, for a stretch of time, the evidence of constrained conditions, of the temporary structure, of the bracing posture, of the dreams qualified by the awareness of unstable ground. And the imagination built on that evidence can conceive of improvement, can picture more than the current state, but cannot fully conceive of the qualitative difference between improvement within the existing framework and the actual replacement of the framework with something fundamentally different. It can picture more money. It cannot fully picture what it feels like to move through daily life as someone who is not monitoring the ground. It can picture a new home. It cannot fully picture what it feels like to wake up in a place that asks nothing of you just to be habitable. The happiness that is coming is not the happiness your current imagination has access to. It is larger, not in a vague, unmeasurable, take my word for it way, in the specific, practical. This is what changes when the framework changes way of someone who has been through the transition and is describing what is on the other side of it from direct experience rather than extrapolation. The other side of it is quieter than you expect, less dramatic, more present. The happiness that comes from foundation is not the happiness of a peak experience. It is the happiness of a baseline that is higher than anything the previous conditions allowed. The happiness of not bracing, the happiness of energy that was previously consumed by maintenance being available for something else, the happiness of deciding what to do with your life from the position of someone who is not first required to stabilize the conditions in which the deciding takes place. That happiness is steady. It does not require peaks to compensate for the valleys. It is the absence of the valleys. And the absence of the valleys is a quality of life so different from the presence of them that your current imagination, calibrated to the presence, genuinely cannot fully picture it. The jackpot framing. Because the title uses it, and because it was used in an earlier reading, and this use is different, and the difference matters. The jackpot in that reading was about the alignment of numbers, the convergence of factors in a specific moment. The jackpot here is different. It is the word for what the permanent structure looks like from the outside of it, for what the combination of home and money and stability and the specific daily baseline happiness they produce looks like to someone observing it from a distance. From the outside, it looks like winning, like the random distribution of fortune landing on one particular person rather than another, like luck. From the inside, it will not feel like luck. It will feel like arrival, like the specific, long traveled, finally here quality of something that has been approaching for the entire length of the journey and is now close enough to touch. It will feel like the temporary structure finally being replaced, not by a better temporary structure, but by the real thing, the walls that do not require constant monitoring to stay standing, the ground that does not require constant checking to confirm it is still there, the space that sustains itself and therefore sustains the person inside it. From the inside, it will feel like rest, real rest. Not the absence of activity, the presence of ground solid enough to stand on without the continuous, low level, energy consuming effort of maintaining your balance on unstable terrain. The rest of someone who has been traveling for a long time and has finally arrived somewhere they can stop, not forever. Not in the static, nothing ever changes sense of a life that has concluded rather than a life that has found its foundation. But stop the traveling, stop the managing of the temporary, stop the bracing, put down the weight of the in between. You are almost there. The building is happening, not in the future tense, present tense. The foundation is being poured. The framework is going up. The specific configuration of money and home and stability that constitutes the permanent structure of this next period of your life is assembling itself from the convergence of conditions that have been developing separately and in parallel for longer than the surface of things has been showing. The assembly is not complete. The structure is not finished. You cannot yet see from the outside what it will look like when it is done, but you can feel it. In the way the ground is different under your feet from how it was 6 months ago, in the way certain previously closed options are showing the first thin lines of becoming open, in the way your own internal relationship to the future has shifted incrementally, without announcement from the qualified dreaming of someone managing temporary conditions to something closer to the unqualified dreaming of someone who is beginning to believe in the place where belief actually lives, that what they are building toward is real and is theirs and is coming. It is real. It is yours. It is coming. And when it arrives, when the jackpot resolves from abstraction into the specific, daily, waking up in it reality of a life that has found its foundation, you will understand what the title meant. You will understand the gap between what your imagination was able to conceive and what the actual thing contains. You will be standing in the quiet of a life that no longer requires you to brace against it. And you will know in the specific way that only being somewhere can teach you exactly how happy this is, exactly how much you didn't realize. Welcome home, Virgo. You built this